Look at this painting. For billions of people, these specific features, the narrow nose, the light skin, and the flowing hair, represent the historical face of Christianity. However, the biological and historical records suggest a figure who looked entirely different from this standard portrayal. During the first few centuries of the religion, there was no single authoritative record of his physical appearance. The face we recognize today was manufactured and standardized centuries after the historical figure actually lived. Early Christianity was regionally diverse. Artists in different parts of the world depicted the story using the features of their own local populations. This Ethiopian mural, for example, illustrates the crucifixion with the specific artistic features and cultural markers of East Africa. This ancient relief carving shows another distinct style, using regional craftsmanship to interpret the figure in a completely different way. If the ancient world was once filled with these diverse, localized interpretations, why did they disappear in favor of the modern version? The dominance of the European image wasn't an accident. It followed a shift in global power. The major transition began in the 16th century, when European sailing fleets began expanding across the entire globe. As these empires grew, they exported their local customs and imagery alongside trade goods and colonial laws. This meant the specifically European depiction of Jesus was transported abroad and presented as a definitive cultural artifact. You can see the scale of this expansion on a map, with vectors radiating outward from European ports toward Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Over several centuries, this constant flow of imagery saturated these regions, establishing the European face as the global standard. The European face traveled as an instrument of empire, and its current ubiquity is a direct result of that geopolitical dominance. When colonizers established footholds in new lands, their imported religious art met with existing local traditions. The imported European version was installed as the official imagery, which displaced the indigenous art of those regions. Through centuries of strict colonial rule, the original, highly diverse historical depictions were forcefully marginalized or systematically destroyed. This historical erasure led to the modern situation, where the European version is firmly entrenched worldwide. The global acceptance of a European Jesus shows how colonial standardization can overwrite historical reality. To find a more accurate image, researchers have moved away from art history and toward forensic facial reconstruction. This process involves building a face layer by layer over a biological foundation, as seen in the sequence of forensic busts. Scientists start with an anatomical baseline, using first-century Judean skull structures like these to determine the underlying bone geometry. They then add layers based on demographic data, accounting for the skin tone and physical features typical of a man living in that specific environment. This method bypasses artistic interpretation entirely by relying on biological evidence. By combining these skeletal maps with regional data, we can finally see what a man from that time and place likely looked like. This is the result: a man with dark olive skin, short hair, and the broad features typical of a first-century Middle Easterner. This Middle Eastern face stands apart from the European artwork established at the start of this video. It serves as a reminder that the images we accept as history often reflect the cultures that held the most power. While empires have the power to overwrite visual history, modern science allows us to uncover the reality beneath the canvas.